Welcome back to Inside Greeley. It has been over a year since we've been with you here on GTV8 to tell about all the things and activities that are happening here in Greeley. So to kick things off and to get right back into things for 2021, we're meeting here with Betsy Kellums, who is with Historic Preservation of the City of Greeley, to talk about this month's, in the month of May. May is Historic Preservation Month. So let's get right to Betsy and find out all the details about what's happening. Betsy, great to have you here today.
Oh, thank you, Amy. It is so exciting to be back.
Yeah, so you're our first. So this is going to be a great interview just because you are our very first victim, if you will. But we have a great opportunity to talk about and to kick things off here with Historic Preservation Month. But first of all, let's start out by telling folks about what is historic preservation and why is it important?
Thank you, Amy. It is so great to be back. And historic preservation is the preservation, obviously, saving of historic buildings, sites, structures, objects, districts, areas, and even landscapes. And the reason it's important is because it helps us connect with the past, which helps us obviously learn so we can move forward. As we all know, things have been so totally turned upside down in the country this year, and this is a good opportunity to think about, connect with people from the past. We learn from the stories of the people who lived in the buildings, but the buildings are the objects that remind us, and we learn from that.
Right, you and I were talking about that without that presence, without those buildings being present for us to see them, we may not question those stories or what may have happened there. So by preserving those and having them here, it allows us to ask those questions and inquire about somebody's stories or the things that have happened within its walls.
Exactly, and it may be good history, it may be bad history, but it's still history, it's still our history, which can't be changed, but we can learn from it. We can learn the good and the bad.
Exactly. So that leads us to, as I mentioned in the beginning, May is Historic Preservation Month. So can you tell us a little bit about that designation, and then we can get into some of the details about how people can get involved.
Absolutely. This year for Historic Preservation Month, we will be having a history brown bag on Zoom on the fourth Thursday of the month. We will also be having a proclamation at the City Council meeting on May 4th, just to proclaim May as Historic Preservation Month and celebrate it. And we will also be featuring Windows of Time documentaries on GTV8 during the month of May, as well as they are also on the city's YouTube channel.
Yeah, so I guess I have to give a little bit of a plug for the Windows of Time show. It's been a while since we've recorded one of those, but these are some great kind of half-hour shows that highlight some of that different history within Greeley, such as the number 3 ditch. So it's not necessarily always just buildings. So the number 3 ditch, and then we also had the Petrican.
J.M.B. Petrican and the Masonic Temple, the POW Camp 202.
Right. Yeah. So and
Germans from Russia.
I wasn't sure who was going to remember it first. So there's a variety of shows there that are available, as Betsy had mentioned. You can see those on GTV8 right here, as well as on YouTube. So and you mentioned that about that history brown bag. Is that here at the Greeley History Museum, or it's a Zoom?
It's on Zoom.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I just wanted to make sure that clarified that so we didn't have people just showing up. Okay. So a plethora of information there and things that are available for folks to do to participate in Historic Preservation Month. Before we wrapped up today, I wanted to take a couple of minutes to remember and to honor someone that has been a big part of historic preservation and the history of Greeley. And so I just wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of talk a little bit about Peggy Ford Waldo.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Peggy Ford Waldo was intimately involved in historic preservation in Greeley. When she first moved to Greeley and started her job at the museum, she had another job prior to that, but when she started at the museum, she saved historic research resources like newspapers and city directories that would have been lost if she hadn't realized their significance. I still use those things in my research. She also was a friend to everybody who knew her. She remembered your kids' names and she always asked me how my husband and daughter were doing. She cared about everybody. She cared about Greeley's history. She cared about teaching it. Her passion seemed to be to teach, to research, learn, and teach about Greeley and Weld County history. She was an amazing person, and I am so thankful. She helped with the preservation plan. She helped with writing the ordinance. She helped researching and writing history books about Greeley. She wrote this book about Greeley images. It was just fantastic. And she's also recently helped with a John Fielder Weld County photographic book.
Yep. Yeah, so I know with my experience with Peggy, we were kind of talking about a little bit before our taping today, that, you know, if you might ask Peggy for something and you would always get way more than you asked for. And it's the same with historic preservation. She was so good at talking with people and really getting that information so that we would have it for the future and future generations. So thank you so much for remembering Peggy, and I know there's some other closing remarks you had.
She knew how important it was when somebody asked her for something, and she was so thorough and accurate. She was meticulous about being accurate. But I just wanted to read this quote that was in a story about her retirement in January of 2021 after 41-and-a-half-year career with the city. The article ended with a quote about how Peggy felt about Greeley. "Greeley is just not the place where I live," Ford Waldo said. "Greeley is the family that I have." She loved Greeley and everybody in it.
Yep, and it was very evident in the work that she did and the relationships that she built. So thank you so much for honoring her today, Betsy. And I know that is perfect timing and fits in very well with this Historic Preservation Month, remembering our history of Greeley and also remembering Peggy. So
and I'd like to dedicate Historic Preservation Month this year to Peggy Ford Waldo.
I think that's perfect and very fitting. So that gives you some of the highlights of what is happening here in the month of May. If you want to find out any more information of all these activities that Betsy has told us about today, you can head on over to greeleygov.com/HP, as in historic preservation. And again, as we mentioned here today, you can also watch those Windows of Times videos on the city's YouTube channel or right here on GTV8. Betsy, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Amy.
All right, so May is Historic Preservation Month. Head on over greeleygov.com/HP.